All right, so we're outside here and we're doing the R&D with the hybrids and the irons. And before we go forward, I'm going to have you introduce yourself. No, we did this last year together.
Yes, sir.
So this isn't new for us.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, so we're friends now. Okay, so introduce yourself, if you would, to the guys at home and the guys and gals at home.
So I'm Patrick Davis. I manage the R&D team for irons and hybrids, really focusing on our consumer-facing product.
Okay, so you manage the R&D team. So
Yes, sir.
explain what that means first. So there was
Yes.
so the R&D research and development, right?
Yes.
Okay, so engineer. So talk about a little background of what you do and so on.
Yeah,
Go
so my team, we're responsible for the kind of CAD 3D modeling of these heads,
Okay.
the kind of analysis, optimization, AI,
Okay.
Swing analysis, swing development, swing segmentation, as well as how this translates to real life. So player, robot testing, all of our kind of post analytics to make sure these clubs are working as intended.
Okay, so now when we did this last year, I want you to do it again because it kind of freaked everybody out at home. When you say team, okay, so what do you mean by team?
Team.
So, so team. So what do you mean by your team? So it's not just one or two guys, right?
No.
Okay.
We have a large team, CAD designers, engineers, data scientists, data engineers, material specialists that are all kind of working together to really maximize our designs, maximize kind of the output for each player that these kind of clubs are designed for.
Okay, now, and then the next thing, before we get into the specifics on this, because I wanted to talk about it real quick, tell me how long this takes, because this is something you guys do overnight.
Yeah.
Okay, in fact, I know you're already working on the next year's clubs.
Yes,
am I
we
right?
are.
Once this is
We
out,
are.
you are. Okay, so
already happening.
Talk a little bit how that occurs. So how long does this take?
This takes, there are features of these clubs that are 3-4 years in the works.
Right.
Most of like the real nitty gritty of this is 2 years, year and a half to really make this all happen. And some of the, that 2 years, year and a half is we're taking things that we've been working on for 3 years, and then we'll pull that off the shelf and like we found a home for it, and this is really how it's going to help someone.
I love that.
There are things that take a while to develop, and just now as the time is right, we've really optimized it and we can throw it ahead.
And the last thing before we get into the real specifics here of the new Elyte, talk about how AI technology is just changing. Because I know at home the AI word is kind of a buzzword. We know that now it's become more and more less of a buzzword and more into practical use. Okay, but tell them how that was such a game changer. It's been on a few years now, and Callaway is obviously the leader in the industry on this.
Right.
I mean, they spent all the money to get the computer, and Chip went in and said, "We're going to do this," and it's a make it or break it, but it did, and it really went crazy. Talk about how that changed things.
So I think for us, it really changed us. If you saw in our AI Smoke line, is really how we optimize the face. 1, performance. 2, feel, sound. It really helped us make this holistic performance club that really gave players the ability to kind of maximize their game and how they want to play.
And I think, not to interrupt you, but I think the biggest thing was, and explain this to them at home a little bit, you use real players' data.
Correct.
It wasn't,
and that's where we went bigger this year. That's where we expanded this year. So this year, the next level of AI for us was really understanding these different players and segmenting their swings using thousands and thousands of data points in terms of fitting data, whether it was internal, external, any swing data we get our hands on. We got our hands on because we optimized.
Because guys, we're out here, the ECPC, and right next door it happens to be a table. We had Adam Hadwin over here, literally just a couple feet from us, working on getting fit, hitting balls, and so on, working in the new Elyte system. Okay, that's not real player data. That's
not a lot of us.
It's ultimate players data. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is real player data using this. I mean, this is for those at home to optimize their games.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So now that we got that, so let's talk about the clubs themselves. Okay, let's go through irons first. And we'll go through the hybrids. Okay, because of the iron hybrid section, but you got 4 different irons this year, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what are they? So let's talk about those.
So we have the standard,
the
X, the HL, and the Max Fast.
So you have the standard, the X, the HL, and the Max Fast.
Yes.
Okay, now let's talk about the difference between them from your end. So this is, we're talking the engineering, the R&D development. Let's talk about the difference in these things. So this is those guys that love the inner workings of this club. This is all for them. Okay, so talk about that for me.
So on the standard, 1, we're using what we would call our standard swing to model when we're doing our analysis. It's not, we're not talking a tour player, but we're talking of game improvement players that, the better end, the guys that, they're hitting down on the ball.
They're making
They're making good context. They're making divots. And so there's some compression going on there.
Love that.
So we understand that. So from a look standpoint, it's going to be the sleekest of the lineup. And then when we look at our optimization for these heads, we're looking at control your shot, not just in dispersion left to right, but also we're looking at your consistency front to back, trying to tighten those up for these players because we understand this is a player that their game's starting to elevate, and so they're going to start to value that portion
so
of consistency.
This player is making consistent divot. This person not looking for as much forgiveness. This person looking for more playability, as we call it.
Yeah.
Workability and so on in that iron, am I right? And so and it has but it has an engineering built into that.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about the engineering that's built into that head.
So the engineering built into the head goes in from the AI face, how we're designing, what we're optimizing for, as well as every external feature. So that tri-sole design. The tri-sole design on all of these heads is unique for the specific club, because we understand that attack is different.
Explain the tri-sole design a little bit on there.
So the tri-sole design, you saw kind of a taste of it in our AI Smoke line, where we had that kind of pre-worn feature. We have that, but we also now broke it down into 3 surfaces. Obviously, star of the show is that leading surface and the leading edge. It's much more aggressive than we had in the past, bringing that leading edge off the ground at impact, allowing you, if you do catch it a little fat, it's going to keep that leading edge off the ground so you kind of get through smoothly.
100%.
Even if you catch it thin, it's just a little more forgiveness in how the face flexes.
And this was a huge deal. This is why a lot of players, the good players, don't like to change irons, because that front edge will wear down a little bit and they get comfortable with that. And the new iron would get a real sharp leading edge and get sticky.
Correct.
And they didn't like that.
Yes.
And so that tri-sole design takes care of that.
Yes, sir.
So you built in, so you actually got a club that's like a little worn in, but it's brand new. And that's the beautiful part of that. And you guys put that into play. Love that. And so that's the standard pair, that's the standard Elite, right? And then you come up into what's the next one? The X. So let's go into that X version.
The next one is the X. And this is one where, last year I think we were missing this from the lineup. We were kind of missing this player. And this is really your kind of, I guess, your bomber player. Your player who has speed, wants to hit it far. These lofts are a little bit stronger than the standard, but we're really focused on dispersion. Your left to right, correct.
This is a very forgiving club.
Yes,
this
most forgiving in the lineup.
So this is the big deal. This is the most forgiving. So you're talking sweet spot, bigness in the face. You're talking about forgiving. Still has a tri-sole design though on it.
Still has a tri-sole design, because these are players that are going to need it.
Right. So they're good. But this is, now talk about the center of gravity on this.
Yeah.
So a little bit about, is it low center of gravity
on this?
A
little bit lower CG, a little deeper CG, really kind of that more forgiveness CG package. And I think the big part of that is we want to make sure that when, these players, not all of them, but looking at our swing data, their impact locations a little more off, are all around the face. And so we want to get that CG a little further from the face. So if you are hitting missed hits, it's a little less harsh of a feel.
Right. Because when you have a CG, that's now describes CG for these.
So CG is center of gravity. So it's where the center of mass is in the head. And basically that correlates mainly to your sweet spot. And as you start hitting off your sweet spot, you feel it more. But if you start moving that CG closer to the face, you're going to be more sensitive to the sweet spot. As you move it further from the face, you're less sensitive to the sweet spot. And also, as you move it further from the face, you actually start to get more moment of inertia, or MOI, in the head, which adds another layer of forgiveness. And that MOI is how stable the head is as you're making impact and as you're coming through with your swing.
So you're hearing the engineer say this, but overall, much more forgiving, forgiving for the guy that makes maybe a little bit less divot, not as makes such a good angle, not as strong angle coming down as the other one. Much more forgiving club.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then you have the next lineup is the HL.
HL.
Okay, and this is unique. This is different. Okay, let's talk about this HL a little bit.
So this is weaker spec package than we have with the standard. This is the weakest in the line. It's going to match the max fast, which we'll get to in a second. And this is really for that player that wants to get the ball in the air. Needs to optimize. They need more carry. They need more spin. They have a hard time holding greens. And this player, can be a player who's a good striker, can be hitting really down on the ball, just might not have the speed or might have really hands forward, so they're just not getting the launch that they need.
So this
is very versatile.
So not as forgiving as the X.
I would say it's forgiving in its own way.
So for the height, okay. So,
really more about spin, spin, launch, probably a little bit less in terms of your left to right, but definitely a consistent shot, and then just more spin and launch.
So on this line here, that you're saying that that player needs the height, they're going to go into this line.
Yes, sir.
All right, good. And then we got the max fast.
Yes, and the max fast is going to be very similar to your HL. We're just going with overall a lighter build package, lighter spec package, allowing players that are just struggling with that swing speed aspect of the game to get a little more swing speed just by utilizing a lighter package. This is a unique head for the max fast. It's a lighter build, but still, encompasses all of those features of the HL, all the, we're talking AI, its own AI optimized process, its own swing code, all of that is unique to this head.
Love it. So that's just kind of more of a weight issue on this.
Yes.
Okay, so before we get into the hybrids, so I'm going to ask that the question that I always call it the $1 million question, because these guys, you heard them at the beginning say that you're working on the next year's product, even a couple of years from now, you're working on that product because you got to stay ahead of the game. So Smoke was a good product. It was a great product. Okay, so how is this even a little bit better? So, because we're gonna talk a little differences here, because I know here's the biggest deal. You got a lot of people at home saying, "I just got the smoke in my hand. Should I change? Should I not change? And so on." Talk about it a little bit. How's that? Because the smoke was great. So how is this the next level?
I think the first thing next level is before you even touch the club, just looking at it.
Right.
We have chrome finish.
Right.
It's a premium finish that we've previously not had at this price point in this core category. Right. The overall looks of these clubs being segmented specifically for separate players. So we have 4 swing segmentations that we're looking at, kind of optimizing for those specific players that, we touched on it a little bit with our AI smoke line, but we really got in the weeds and really identified who those players are and really tailored these clubs for those players this year. Right. Sound and feel is going to be much more premium than last year. We have our speed frame technology.
Right.
This speed frame technology, you talk about speed frame, that's a strong, rigid frame for this body. What that does is, first, the name speed, it allows for max energy transfer. So when you're swinging, everything you're putting in your swing is going to go into the ball. Right. And how that works is that the face is deflecting and all of the energy is going into that deflection to then spring back into the ball. Right. None of that's going to be lost in the body.
Gotcha.
So that's the first part. But that second part of that speed frame is going to be the sound and feel part. And as we start to stiffen up that top line, we realize that top line is where the clack a lot of times come from, that kind of, undesirable clack sound you get in these speed irons. And so we really stiffen that up to reduce that top line.
And that's the top line of the club.
And so that's at the top line of the club, and that's what gives you that solid sound and feel. Now the balance between solid sound and feels, we want it to sound solid, but we want it to still sound forgiving and fast. Right. Because when you pick up a Callaway iron, you're getting ball speed. Right. We never want the consumer to be confused about that.
Right. Love it. I love it. So you guys think you got to get another hit home run on this again?
Yeah. I think this is, honestly, this is probably one of the strongest irons we've made. Well, it's in my bag, and I'm a Forge player.
Yeah, I was going to say that, because I can see a lot of Forge players coming to this, because this is almost an old school, I'm not going to say old school look, but with that chrome on there, you kind of see that. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful iron, and with that feel. I mean, you get the feel in there, and you describe that feel. So, I want you to go over that one more time for these, because this is the biggest thing, because this is what really sets you guys with Callaway apart, because then we'll get into the hybrids here, but is talk about the real players' data, if you would, one more time for them, because this is such a big deal. Because this is such a huge change that has occurred in the last few years. If you go that one more time, explain what that means by real world data, because that's another one. AI and data. What's that mean to everybody out there?
The process.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we take all of our data. So we have internal fitting data, we have external fitting data that we're sourcing down. We get all of that swing data, and we get all their impact locations. We're seeing, what their attack, hands forward, yaw, pitch.
Where do you get that data from? I mean, do you get people, you just go take the data, people are giving
So we have internal fit sources of data that are, licensed through us, and there's some other external that that we kind of partner with other companies to kind of get data from. And so that data is then, we segment that data out. And when I talk about segment, you kind of go through this, a pre-AI process that's also AI, where you're kind of asking it, hey, break down this data into kind of buckets that kind of, with certain aspects, kind of break it down into certain categories that are defining, that are unique in each ways. And from there, it kind of broke us down to 4 unique swings that represent the entire population. And it gives us back, percentage of the population that fits into that category. So standard's obviously going to be we see that as the core. That's going to be, accommodating most of the population. X is up there. HL and Max Fast are a little smaller, but they really focus on a different category that the standard.
So you're talking about the majority of people, the majority are going to be standard or X. And then the HL and then the fast. There's a population. I mean, in our demographic, even it's an older demographic, so we talk a lot about our demographic.
And if with the older demographic, you're going to see that probably more into the HL, 100%. Giving that extra carry. And I think that's what's special about this offering. And so now we have that data, we bring it all down, and then we also look at their impact locations, how they're impacting the club, where in the club they're impacting. And we're using that to drive our hotspots to those high frequency impact areas. And that's how we're kind of using the full swing and full dynamics of the golf swing in our optimization. It's very unique to us.
Love it. Let's talk a little bit about the hybrids.
Yes, sir.
So let's go.
This is where I get pretty excited on this. This is the most versatile hybrid we've made. And so it's something special, I think.
Okay, so let's walk in the hybrid. So I'm gonna put these in here real quick. All right. I'm gonna grab these. All right, so you have 3 different offerings in the hybrids, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's just talk about the hybrid itself first of all. Okay, let's talk about the Elyte, the hybrid. okay? And just in general, the principle of the hybrid, then we'll talk about the 3 offerings, okay? So what's special about this hybrid? Tell me about it.
Adjustability.
Adjustability.
It is, I mean, it's the same speed, forgiveness, improved AI analytics that we have in the irons. But the next level on these is the adjustability. We have a 10-gram swing in weight from your heel to toe. So you're going to start with a neutral shot, and then you could go to a draw shot if desired. And then you have the adjustability in the hosel sleeve. So it's a lie-oriented adjustability. We have
which
up
is huge
to 2 degrees up and 2 degrees flat of adjustability. So it's one important for players that are playing different length clubs, but also for players that want to do unique things with the clubs. Like a little bit about me, I play the 3 hybrid, 2 flat, with 1.25 inches over.
Well, we teach single plane swing, so we stand a little bit further from the golf ball, so most people are a little bit flatter in relationship to standard.
Perfect.
It's perfect for us. That's always been a big deal with Callaway, is that we've typically always been able to adjust the hybrid or the lie angles, and now we're back in the able to do that. Because you go away from it, now you came back. And I'll tell you right now, when you dealt with Chip, and coming from Adams from years and years ago, he always talked about the adjustability of hybrids. That was a big deal. And now we're back into this here with this, and that's huge. That's huge. That was really excites you guys. I can see it, because every time I bring this up with Callaway, I've talked already with other people about this, and I go to the hybrids, first thing they say is lie adjustability. They go right to that, and that's huge. So we got lie adjustability, we got the weight and the toe and the heel adjustability on there. That's huge. That's massive. I mean, you don't have much more now. Just describe the hybrid itself. Describe why the Elyte hybrid is really a built-in, really improvement hybrid. Tell me what's so good about it.
So again, we have our 3 distinct categories of players. We have the X, the Standard, the Max Fast. We have unique loft packages in those. But really, the magic comes together as the AI face. It just provides the speed and forgiveness. And we're using swing data similar to how we did with the irons to really understand how players are hitting them. And it almost becomes more critical on a hybrid because players play them in such different sort of situations and different setups where you really need to understand the swing. And that's where, honestly, the lie adjustability really showed in the data we needed it, because we saw players toe up, toe down, so much variation in their swings. And that adjustability is going to allow them to kind of dial that swing and get that nice, clean, square impact.
I agree, totally agree with that, because you don't get square impact with that with the sole of the club, you've got problems. And that lie adjustability take care of that. So now you got the standard on you got the standard, right? And talk about the little face neck, because this is the big deal about the width of that face. So talk about that, the standard versus the X in particular.
So standard versus the X. On the standard, this is going to be very similar to AI Smoke. On the X, we have a little more of a high toe, a little more fuller face, so a higher face height. And that just, again, it's that kind of ultimate forgiveness package. It's going to be a little more general draw bias, but really ultimate forgiveness. We're just as we increase the area of the face, we're also increasing the area of the sweet spot, really allowing players to kind of get after it.
So you have the standard, then you have the X. X is ultimate forgiveness, a lot of forgiveness. Then the standard X, then you have the...
And then we have the Max Fast. And on the Max Fast, we're going to have a little smaller profile, really focused on everything about this club is about launch. So we're pulling the CG down, a little smaller face height, really focusing on letting it, at address, even giving you that confidence that I'm going to be able to get this ball in the air. And we want to force players almost to hit it a little bit higher on the face to kind of give them a little more forgiving launch with their impact angle.
And we have the engineer here, we have the tech guy here, and this is the part that I really like too, is prior to this year, when you went Max Fast, most of the time you didn't have adjustability in it. And you took that away because you were talking about the weight. It was this big deal, like we can't put that weight in there to really lighten this up, but you did it here, didn't you?
We went through pretty big efforts to get the weight in there and still have the...
Trust me, big effort was big effort, wasn't it?
And still have the adjustability on the sole. So it was a lot of kind of work. We went through a lot of work with our suppliers to do a lot of thin wall casting activities to get that body as thin and as light as possible.
There you go. So, there's the tech term, thin wall casting activities. I love it. So there we go. Now we're getting there. That's what you had to do, because if you want to keep the adjustability, which is weight, how much weight is in that?
Depends on how you look at it, but all of this all of those components together is just north of like 12 grams.
So there's some weight.
That's a full... That's a full weight that we'd have in the external of the
100%. 100%. That's a lot of weight into that. So that's what you're doing within that. So, but these are you have those 3 lines in that. So you have the standard, you have the X, and you have the Max Fast in that. And you go through line. Now, last thing I'll talk about this, because you guys worked hard on this last year and make sure that you carried it in the Elyte, but we talked about the gapping in between, because a lot of my students at home will have a 4, 5, 6 hybrid in their bag, or maybe even going to a 7 hybrid. But let's say they go through a 6 hybrid and they go from a 6 hybrid to that 7 iron. Okay, and you guys work hard on that, trying to get that gapping close. Am I right? Because before in the past, you had this, you could have a huge problem. They might hit that six hybrid 20 yards further, 25 yards further than 7 iron. Okay, and you guys tried to solve that, right? Okay, so talk about a little bit about that.
That's part of our gapping, or our kind of gapping or differentiating lofts that we have within each line. So last year, our max, or HL and our standard was the same lofts. We were just changing spin characteristics based on CG. This year, with the idea of gapping, we're focusing on adjusting the loft. So if you look at like your 4 hybrid on the standard model, you're 22. On the X, you're 21. And then on the max fast, you're 23. And so there's that kind of progressive gapping within the sets, so then you can kind of find what lofts best fit your game as we go down. So you have, you know, at each loft, there's going to be a 3-degree drop that you could find.
Love it. Love it. And that's how you really keep those gapping, because you don't want to have that huge gap, because that's people sit there. I'm not talking about being easier to hit hybrids, but just naturally hitting that and finding that gapping, because in the past you didn't have that.
Because our HL was, you know, a weaker package in the irons, but it wasn't in the hybrid. Now we've kind of matched those back up. And I think that's the key about adjustability, is then you could find, you know, a player playing the HL iron, but could be playing a standard hybrid,
100%.
or an X hybrid, because they might like the shape, they might like the flight, but because of all the adjustments, we can then dial in their gapping.
100%. I love it. So anything else you want to talk about this? I mean, so if you can leave last thing, or decide what they should get with this new Elite line or not, what would you tell them?
I think you're just going to find clubs that are, you know, better suited for your game. They're going to look good. They're going to look premium. You're going to get your money's worth for sure. It's R&D department as a whole. We're so proud of the irons and hybrids we created this year. We really think, you know, from the most adjustable hybrid we've ever offered to the most premium feeling, looking, playing iron at this price point and for this player, it's something that we really, I know. We were pretty humble in what we do. Humble and hungry is our saying. But this is one that we're really proud of.
Good. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate it.